going to look at question number 1. We took the first times the last, which is a negative 10. It's negative, so we know that 1 is positive, one number is negative. Sign in the middle is negative, so larger one's negative, smaller one is positive. What two numbers now are going to multiply together to give me 10, subtract from each other to give me 3 in the middle? Okay, 5 and 2. It's a negative 3, so we need a negative 5 and a positive 2 there. Can we just jump to our factors? No, because of the 2 in front, right? If it was just x squared, we could jump to our answer. But we can't do that because of the 2, so we have to split it up. So we take that 3x and we split it up. So we have a 2x squared. And we have a minus 5x on the end, minus 5 that stays there. And then we have in the middle a minus 5x and a positive 2x there. Is everyone okay with what I did there? So I split that middle up. And now once I've got it split up, I need to factor by grouping. So the first 2, what can I factor out of the first 2? What can I factor out of the first 2 I've got underlined here? Can someone tell me? Nothing's in common, but I can factor out a x. And that leaves you with a 2x minus 5. What about the next 2 pieces? If nothing comes out, you can always factor out a 1. And that leaves you then with a 2x minus 5 as well. Are my parentheses the same? Yes. So those can go together in front. So that's a 2x minus 5 in front. What's left over? Gone and gone. That's going to leave you with, with an x plus 1. And that equals 0. Now, how do we finish it? We've got it factored. We said each piece is 0. So x plus 1 equals 0. So x equals then a negative 1. There's one of them. We've got a 2x minus 5 equals 0. So 2x equals 5. Divide by 2, and that gives you x equals now 5 over 1. 2. So there's your 2 solutions there. That's 0 factors. So we set it to 0. Okay, and then we factored it. The next 2, we're going to be using the quadratic formula. And I made them multiple choice so you could tell if you were on the right track or not. So we're going to look at question number 11. And we're going to solve question number 11 using the quadratic formula. So let's make sure we're on the right track. First off, has it been set to 0? Yes. To use the quadratic formula, it has to be set to 0. If it's not, make it equal 0. What's our A, our B, and our C going to be? Well, if we're missing any numbers, we can put the 1s. So for our quadratic formula, we know then A is 1, B is also 1, and C is 5. And our formula then is x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Is everyone okay with that so far? Now we fill it in. Be careful with your signs. Where students make a mistake at is usually in the signs, especially with that negative b. So we plug in our b. So that's a 1, so we change it. So that's going to make that a minus 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 5. And that's all going to be over 2 times the 1. Plug our values in. We're going to now clean this up. So that's going to be a minus 1 plus or minus. 2 times 1 is 2 down there. We've got our square root here. Let's do our discriminant over to the side. And our discriminant is 1 squared minus 4 times 1 times 5. So that's 1. And 4 times 5 is 20. It's a minus. And that makes that then a minus 19. We need to finish it. Can we have a negative underneath the square root? No. So what do we bring that out as? We bring that out as an I. So that's going to be a minus 1. Then we have a plus or minus. We're going to bring that I out. Square root of 19 is still left because 19 won't break down. And that's all over 2. And that should look like one of the answers there. Okay, and we could probably want to split it up, right? So we're going to go ahead and split this up like they did. Split that up into minus 1 over 2, plus or minus the square root of 19 over 2i. And so that split up into that, and that should be one of the answers. Make sure you're very careful. It looks like it's answer D, doesn't it? So it should be answer D, because that one's imaginary, and it also has the negative there. So that one will come out to be answer D. $12 is the last one, unless we have some more to add to the list. So we're going to look at question 12, and then we're going to work on our practice exam. And you're going to be doing that in groups. 14 and 15? Yep, sure. We can add those to the list as well. I do which ones? 13 and 15? Sure. So 13 and 15 will be added. Okay. So that was 12 is next here. So we're going to go ahead and look at question 12. And we're solving this one with the quadratic formula. When we look at a question like this one, always make sure that you can't reduce down at the beginning to make your life easier. You want those numbers to be as small as possible. So when I look at question 12, I've got a 4, an 8, and a 2. So that means all of those are going to be divisible by what? So let's go ahead and divide everything by 2. That's going to make it easier. So now we're left with a 2x squared. 8 divided by 2 is a 4x. 2 divided by 2 is a 1. And that equals now 0. Is it in the correct form? Yes. So what's my A? 2. B is 4. C is 1. Write up your formula. And plug your values in. So plugging that in, that's going to be a minus 4 there, plus or minus. We've got the square root of 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times 1 all over 2 times 2 there. Reduce it down. So minus 4 plus or minus goes there. 2 times 2, that makes it a 4 down below. What's your discriminant? All right, the discriminant is 4 squared minus 4 times 2 times 1. So that's 16 minus 8, which is then an 8. And I'll probably go through this pretty quickly. But what did we do? We divided everything by 2 at the beginning. You don't have to, but if you don't, you're going to have to reduce down more at the end. So the more you can do at the beginning, the easier it will be. So it's going to be a lot easier with smaller numbers if we divide at the beginning by that 2. Now, once we're at this step, how do we break up 8? Well, 8 breaks down into 2 and 4, 2 and 2. So now that's minus 4 plus or minus 2, square root of 2 over 4. And that is not one of the answer choices, is it? Nope, we need to break it up so that we can get one of the answer choices there. So that's going to be then minus 4 over 4 plus or minus 2 square root of 2 over 4. And we can reduce it down. 4 over 4 makes it a minus 1 plus or minus. Those cancel. 2 and the 4 cancel. That leaves you then with the square root of 2 over 2, right? Because those can cancel there. That's still not one of the answer choices. All of our answer choices, though, right, when we look here, all of our answer choices are over 1 fraction bar. So let's put it back into 1 fraction bar. And we can do that by multiplying this by a 2 over 2. And when I multiply that by a 2 over 2, that gives you a minus 2 plus or minus the square root of 2 over 2 for your answer. This is fine. I would take this as an answer, but that's what they have as a choice. So that's fine. That's okay as an answer, but that's the way they wrote it. And so that looks like that's going to be answer B, doesn't it? Two more, and then we'll look at our practice exam. So we want to look at questions 13 and 15. Those are the fraction ones. So let's look at question 13. 4/9 squared minus 4/3 x equals a negative 1. So when we use the quadratic formula, we never, ever want to have fractions in the quadratic formula. So we need to get rid of them. So the first thing we want to do is we want to multiply all of this by what? Does anyone have any idea what we would multiply this by? Least common denominator. And what would that be? 9. Okay, so we're going to multiply it all by 9. Make sure that it goes through each part. Where students make a mistake is with that minus 1. They'll forget to distribute it through to that minus 1. So now the 9's cancel, and that leaves you with a 4x squared. The 9 and the 3 cancel, that leaves you with 3 times a negative 4. That makes it a minus 12x. And don't forget on the right-hand side, 9 times a negative 1. Well, that makes it a negative 9, doesn't it? Okay, is everyone okay with that so far? Now it's set up for the quadratic formula. So we add our 9 over to make it 0. Now we can use our formula. So A is 4, B is a negative 12, C is 9. Okay, write up our formula. X equals minus B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC over 2A. Plug your values in. So when I plug them in, watch out for double negatives. So we have a negative of a negative 12 plus or minus the square root of now minus 12 squared minus 4 times A, which is 4, C, which is 9, all over 2 times 4. Now this one's going to be nice because we're only going to get one solution because that square root will eventually be 0. So let's go ahead now and finish this out. So we've got everything we need. We just need to rewrite this. Watch out for the double negatives, because the double negatives here make this now positive. So you have to be very careful with that. Commonly made mistake is not changing that sign. So now we have a 12 plus or minus. 2 times 4 is an 8. Right-hand side, we'll do our discriminant. And that's a negative 12 squared minus 4 times 4 times 9. 12 squared is 144. 4 times 4 is 16. And 9 times 16 should make it a 144. And that comes out to be 0. Now, how do we handle that? Okay, square root of 0 is what? 0. So do we even need that at all? No. That can be gone. So what are we left with? 12 over 8, and you've got to reduce that down so that it matches up. And 12 over 8 is going to reduce down now when you reduce it. That's going to reduce down to a 3 over what? 2. And there's your final answer. The plus or minus are gone because the square root of 0 is 0, and that took out that discriminant. So that one should be what you get for question 13. We also ask about 15. So how do we handle 15? Well, we need to clear out our fractions again, don't we? Now, we have no numbers in the denominator, but what we have is we have x's in the denominator. And what's our highest power of x? Squared. So we're going to have to multiply everything now by x squared to get rid of it. Because that x squared will take out that one. You have to make sure you use the highest power. So now we've got 6x squared, the x squared and the x cancel. That leaves you with a minus 6. The x squareds directly cancel, and that leaves you with a minus 1. Fractions are gone. This needs to be set to 0. So add the 6x over and add the 1. And now we have 6x squared plus 6x plus 1 equals 0. Let's go ahead and get our A, our B, and our C. So 6, 6, and 1 it looks like. And after we finish this question, I'm going to break you up into groups, and I'm going to give you the practice exam, and we're going to spend the balance of the time in the class period working on the practice exam. So that's our next project, is to work on that. So let's write up our formula. X equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Let's go ahead now and fill it in. So that's minus 6 plus or minus the square root of 6 squared minus 4 times 6 times 1 all over 2 times the 6 there. Go ahead and break this down. So we have a minus 6 plus or minus, we've got our square root, and 2 times 6 is a 12. Our discriminant is over here, and that's 6 squared minus 4 times 6 times 1, so that is 36, and 4 times 6 is 24. Subtract them and we get our 12. That's not one of our choices, though, is it? We've got to break down that 12 because that 12 is going to break down, and then we can reduce it with that. So the 12. How does the 12 split up? 4 and 3, 2 and 2. So the 2's will come out. Now we want to break this up and we want to reduce it so we can get one of these answer choices. So let's see what we can do. Splitting this up, we have a minus 6 over 12 plus or minus 2 square root of 3 over 12. Okay, and 6 over 12. Yep, reduce that down to a minus a half. 2 and 12 reduces down to a 6 down below. Now we want it to have a common denominator so it matches up with their answer. This is okay. I would take that as an answer. They sometimes will put it in one fraction bar. So let's multiply this by a 3 over 3. That way we can get it back to a 12, or sorry, 6 down below. And 3 times a negative 1, that's a negative 3. Plus or minus square root of 3 over 6. And that should be one of the choices there. If you didn't have choices, this is okay too. This is the same as that, it just looks different. But that should be one of your answer choices. And that looks like it's going to be answer C, doesn't it? So that would be answer C there. Now I'm going to go ahead and pass out your practice exam.